Okay, so today we're gonna look into something pretty intense.
Yeah.
Toxic family dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
specifically how they intersect with autism. So imagine
Right.
growing up in a home where a parent's need for attention, it just kind of eclipses everything else.
Yeah.
They're always on edge, always waiting for the other shoe to drop,
Mm-hmm.
the next emotional explosion.
Mm.
Sadly, this is the reality for many autistic individuals who are raised in these systems, these narcissistic family systems.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. These narcissistic family systems, they really do have some pretty clear hallmarks. Emotional manipulation, lack of empathy, inconsistent boundaries, sometimes even gaslighting. You know the parent's emotional needs. They always come first. And that has a really devastating impact on a developing child.
Makes sense that autistic individuals
Mm-hmm.
might be especially susceptible to this, like trying to learn to dance, but your partner keeps changing the steps.
Oh, absolutely. You consider the challenges that many autistic people face with social communication, picking up on cues, setting boundaries. It can be incredibly difficult to navigate those expectations when they're always shifting.
And I imagine sensory sensitivities just magnify that.
Yeah.
All that emotional volatility
I
and
know.
tension must feel like a pressure cooker.
Exactly. Creates this constant state of anxiety and hypervigilance, always on edge, trying to avoid potential triggers. And this can really hinder a person's development and well-being. I think about therapy approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectical behavior therapy can be so helpful for learning to manage anxiety, challenge negative thought patterns, develop assertiveness skills. It's like having a toolkit to de-escalate conflict, communicate needs effectively, set boundaries with confidence. That's what therapy can provide.
So you're trying to figure out a world that's already pretty complicated for many autistic people, but then you add in a parent who always has to have their needs met.
Yeah,
It's like a recipe for disaster.
that's right.
What experts call the toxic dance.
Exactly. It's this stance where the autistic person often feels responsible, solely responsible for their parents' emotions. They spend their lives walking on eggshells, trying to avoid those outbursts or guilt trips. And in some cases, the parent might even use the autistic child as an emotional crutch, burdening them with their own anxieties and insecurities.
That makes me think about support networks, people outside the family dynamic
Yeah,
who can offer validation and guidance and a sense of belonging.
absolutely.
It's so empowering.
It is. It's about creating that counterbalance to the negativity and isolation that they might be experiencing at home, showing them they are not alone, that their experiences are valid, and that they deserve to be treated with respect and kindness.
And that support can be a game changer, especially when it comes to setting boundaries within a narcissistic family system.
Absolutely.
But setting those boundaries must be so hard when you've always been told to put the parents' needs first. What would that even look like to set a boundary in that situation?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it could be as simple as saying, Mom, I understand that you're upset, but I can't talk about this right now. It's about recognizing your own needs and asserting them in a clear and respectful way, even if it triggers pushback from the parent.
It's about taking those first steps toward reclaiming your power and autonomy
Yeah.
and setting boundaries. It's not selfish. It's about protecting yourself,
Exactly.
which is essential
Yeah.
for healing and growth.
You're exactly right. It's a crucial part of breaking free from that toxic cycle and starting to build a healthier, more balanced relationship with yourself and with others. Let's dive into some examples from the research that illustrate this toxic dance in the lives of autistic individuals.
Yeah, let's get into some specifics that
Yeah,
will help us understand the nuances of all of this.
Okay, so one story that really resonated with me was that of a young autistic adult who described constantly censoring their own thoughts and feelings around their mother. They were terrified of saying or doing anything that might trigger her anger or disapproval. Imagine living like that, in that constant state of anxiety, trying to cater to someone else's needs.
It sounds exhausting,
It is
like you're walking through a minefield,
Mm.
constantly worried
Mm.
about setting off the next explosion.
Right.
I can't imagine what that does to your self-worth. It's like you're being told
Yeah.
that you don't matter. Your feelings don't matter.
Exactly. And that feeling of invalidation is often made worse by criticism directed at the person's autistic traits. Another example, an autistic individual who's constantly being criticized for their social awkwardness, their sensory sensitivities. By a narcissistic parent, instead of offering support and understanding, the parent used those things as opportunities to belittle and shame them.
It's like being punished for being who you are. It's no wonder that so many autistic people struggle with anxiety and depression when they've been treated this way. by their own family. Do you think it looks different, depending on where they fall on the spectrum?
That's a great question. You're right to point out that the experience of autism is so diverse. Someone who's more verbally articulate, maybe more socially adept, they might be more likely to internalize the criticism, blame themselves for not meeting those unrealistic expectations. They
Right.
might develop a really deep sense of shame and self-doubt, always feeling like they're falling short.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about individuals who are more reliant on routines, predictability?
Yeah. For those individuals, the inconsistent boundaries, the emotional volatility of a narcissistic family can be incredibly disruptive and distressing. Imagine your world being constantly thrown into chaos by a parent's unpredictable moods and demands.
It's a recipe for meltdowns and anxiety and a feeling of helplessness.
Absolutely.
This is all pretty heavy stuff,
Yeah.
but it's so important to talk about it. And while it might sound bleak, I want to assure our listener that it's not a hopeless situation.
Oh, no, not at all.
There are pathways to healing and empowerment,
There are.
and we'll be exploring those
Yes, we will.
in part 2 of our deep dive.
We need to shift our focus from despair to empowerment.
I like that.
Let's talk solutions.
Okay, so it's like learning a new dance.
Right.
We need to replace those toxic steps with healthier ones.
Yeah.
So what are some strategies for breaking free from this dynamic?
Well, one strategy that can be really helpful is education. Learning about narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic family systems can empower you to recognize the patterns and protect yourself from further harm.
Knowledge is power.
It really is.
It's about being able to make informed choices
Exactly.
and take control of your own life.
Yeah. There are some great books and resources that we can link in the show notes for our listeners.
Perfect. And in addition to education, I'd imagine that seeking professional support is also really important because there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with growing up in a system like this.
Absolutely. Therapy and counseling provide a safe and supportive space for autistic individuals to process the trauma, develop coping skills, and start rebuilding their self-esteem. It's about reclaiming that sense of agency and learning to prioritize their own needs.
So therapy can equip them
Yeah.
with the tools and insight
Yeah.
that they need to navigate this challenging situation
Yeah.
and start to heal.
Yeah. And equally important are those strong support networks. Having people outside of the family who can offer validation and guidance and a sense of belonging can be so empowering.
It creates that counterbalance
Yeah.
to the negativity that they're experiencing at home.
Yeah.
It shows them that they're not alone.
Absolutely.
Their experiences are valid, and they deserve to be treated with respect and kindness.
Exactly. And another crucial step is learning to set and maintain healthy boundaries. This might involve saying no to unreasonable requests, limiting contact with the narcissistic parent, or even choosing to distance themselves entirely, if necessary.
Which I imagine is really hard when you've been conditioned to put their needs first.
It is.
But it's such an important step in breaking free from
And
that toxic cycle.
It's about reclaiming your power and autonomy
Right.
and remembering that setting boundaries is not selfish. It's about protecting your own well-being.
And then finally, there's self-care.
Yeah.
Finding activities that bring you joy,
Mm-hmm.
that reduce stress, that help you feel more in control.
Right.
All of that is so essential for healing and growth.
Exactly. This could be anything from art and music to spending time in nature or connecting with supportive online communities.
It's about rediscovering who you are
Yes.
outside of that dysfunctional family dynamic
That's right.
and nurturing your own passions and interests.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming your life and building a future where you can thrive.
It's about finding those little things, those activities and spaces that make you feel whole, that nourish your soul, and remind you.
Of your own strength,
Right.
your resilience.
Exactly. Shedding those layers of conditioning
Yeah.
and rediscovering who you truly are.
Yeah.
And it can be so liberating and empowering.
So we've talked about therapy, support networks, setting boundaries, and self-care. Are there any other strategies or resources you would recommend?
You know, sometimes the most powerful tool is remembering that we're not alone. There are others out there who've experienced similar challenges and come out stronger on the other side.
Right.
Connecting with people who get it, who understand, can be so validating and empowering.
Finding that sense of community, shared experience,
Mhm.
knowing that you're not the only one, must be so comforting.
It is.
Just hearing someone else say, me too.
Can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize that healing is possible. It takes time, it takes effort,
Yeah.
but it is achievable.
It is.
And the rewards are immeasurable. Greater self-awareness, stronger relationships, a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment.
It's about reclaiming your life.
Yes.
And living it on your own terms.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly powerful message of hope.
It is. It's about recognizing that you deserve happiness. You have the strength to create a brighter future. And if we think about this more broadly, it's about challenging societal norms that stigmatize neurodiversity and mental health challenges.
It's about creating a world where people are celebrated for who they are, supported on their journeys towards well-being, no matter their neurology or their family background.
Exactly.
Before we move on, I want to make sure we talk about the power of creative expression.
Oh, yeah.
As part of self-care.
That's so important.
How can we tap into that?
Right.
The healing power of art, music, writing, any form of creative expression.
Because sometimes words just aren't enough
to
process those complex emotions and experiences, like giving a voice to those unspoken feelings, giving them shape, form in the world.
And it can be so empowering to see those feelings transformed into something you've created.
Right, something tangible.
Absolutely. And it's not just about processing difficult emotions. Creative expression can also be a source of joy, a way to connect with your passions,
and
a reminder of your own strength.
So for our listener who might be thinking, I'm not an artist, how would you encourage them to explore this?
I would say, don't limit yourself with labels. You don't have to be a professional. To benefit from creative expression, it's about finding what works for you. Doodling, singing in the shower, writing poetry, building something. It's about the process, not the product.
Giving yourself permission to play, to experiment, to express yourself without judgment.
Absolutely.
Who knows, you might even discover some hidden talents, passions along the way.
Exactly. It's about opening yourself up to new possibilities.
Rediscovering that joy of creativity. So as we head into the final part of our deep dive today, let's recap some key takeaways for our listener.
All right. We started by talking about how narcissistic family systems create a really challenging environment for autistic people.
The
emotional manipulation, the lack of empathy, the inconsistent boundaries can be so damaging to their well-being and development.
And that toxic dance where the autistic person feels responsible for the parent's emotions and constantly walks on eggshells, it can have long-lasting consequences on their self-esteem and their ability to form healthy relationships.
But it's not a hopeless situation. There are strategies and resources available to help people heal and find empowerment.
Absolutely.
Therapy, support networks, setting boundaries, prioritizing self-care. These are all essential steps in breaking free from this dynamic.
It's about replacing those harmful steps with healthier ones. Steps that lead to greater self-awareness, stronger relationships, deeper sense of peace and fulfillment.
It's about taking back your power,
Yeah.
your voice, your life.
It really is.
It's about creating a new story, a story where you're in control.
Yeah.
So for our listener, if you've been relating to this, what's the first step that you can take to break free?
Sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest difference. It could be something as simple as setting a boundary, saying no to something unreasonable, or disengaging from a conversation that's draining you.
It's like testing the waters, trying out your new strength, realizing you can actually do this.
Exactly. And you don't have to do it all at once. Start small. Every step you take is a step toward reclaiming your power.
And if taking that step feels overwhelming, remember that reaching out for help is a sign of strength.
It is.
Sameness.
A therapist can help you develop those coping skills,
Right.
build your resilience, and create a plan for healing.
And you're not alone in this. There are support groups, online communities where you can connect with other autistic people who get it.
Absolutely. That sense of community can be so validating.
Yeah.
It's about knowing you're not the only one who's been through this.
Right.
Your experiences are real, and there is hope.
As you're on this journey of healing and reclaiming yourself, remember to celebrate your victories, no matter how small.
Absolutely.
It's about recognizing your progress, honoring your resilience, and being kind to yourself.
Self-compassion is so important. Be kind to yourself. This is a process. It's not a race. You'll have ups and downs. Allow yourself to feel it all.
It's about embracing all of it, the messy, imperfect beauty of being human.
Exactly.
Healing isn't a straight line
It's not.
as you move forward.
Yeah.
Remember that you deserve happiness. You deserve fulfilling relationships.
Yes, you do.
You deserve to live a life that's authentically yours.
That's the message. I hope everyone takes away from this. You have the power to create a new story for yourself.
So if you're ready to rewrite your story, to step out of those shadows and embrace your potential, what's one small thing you can do today to honor yourself, to reclaim your power? Maybe reach out to a therapist, join a support group, or just take 5 minutes to do something you enjoy. Remember, every step counts.
Every step.
No matter how small, it's a step toward healing and empowerment.
We'll be here cheering you on.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into a tough but important topic. We hope you learned something, found some hope, and maybe even some inspiration to start your own journey of healing and transformation.